What happens when a young black teen stands in front of a white judge in a courtroom, trying to defend himself against charges that could change his life forever? When racial bias meets unexpected resilience, the truth that unfolds can leave everyone in shock. The moment of reckoning comes when the judge laughs at his defense, only to be left stunned by a secret that turns everything upside down. The courtroom is full of tension. Lawyers exchange arguments. The chatter of the audience hums in the background, and the air feels thick with expectation. Jamal, a young black teen with short, neatly combed hair, stands in front of the judge, his hands trembling ever so slightly as he holds his defense. He wears a simple suit, trying his best to appear composed, but the nervousness in his eyes is clear. Across from him, the judge, an older white man with glasses perched low on his nose, looks at him with barely veiled skepticism. He taps his gavel with an air of authority, and the room falls silent. "Jamal," the judge says, his voice carrying the weight of experience, "you've heard the charges against you. Do you deny them?" Jamal takes a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "No, Your Honor. I don't deny that I was at the scene, but I wasn't part of the crime. I was just there, at the wrong place, at the wrong time." The judge raises an eyebrow, glancing at the lawyers on either side. "At the wrong place, at the wrong time," he repeats, a faint smirk curling his lips. "Well, that sounds like quite the convenient defense, young man. Let's see if you can convince me." Jamal's heart races. He hadn't prepared for this level of skepticism, but he can't let his nerves get the best of him. He clears his throat and continues. I was just walking home. I saw a group of people running, and I—" Before he can finish, the judge interrupts him with a dismissive chuckle. "Oh, I see," the judge says with mock sympathy. "You were just walking home, and then somehow you ended up caught in the middle of a crime scene? Sounds like a real stroke of bad luck. Do you really expect me to believe that?" The judge's laughter echoes in the courtroom, and Jamal feels his face flush with embarrassment. His defense, the truth, seems to have been reduced to a punchline in the eyes of the judge. The room falls silent, and Jamal's mind races. He knows the consequences of being wrongly convicted, and he knows that the odds are stacked against him. But there's one thing he has that the judge doesn't know, something that will change the entire course of this hearing. Jamal stands tall, swallowing his pride. "Your Honor," he says, his voice steady now, "I understand that you may not believe me, but I swear to you I wasn't involved in what happened that night." The judge leans forward, smirking once again. "And why should I believe you? You've given me nothing but a story. You're no different than any other young person caught in the wrong place." Jamal takes another breath and says, "Because I know who did it, and I can prove it." The judge's smile falters slightly as he leans back in his chair, surprised by the unexpected turn. "Oh, really? How is that? Do tell." Jamal looks up, his gaze meeting the judge's. "I know the person who did it, Your Honor, and I can provide you with the evidence. But I need protection. For me and my family." The room goes quiet. The judge's eyes narrow, no longer amused. The tension in the air becomes palpable. Jamal knows this is his only chance. He's about to reveal something that will not only shock the judge, but could potentially change the entire case. "Jamal," the judge says slowly, "you'd better not be playing games. What are you talking about?" Jamal hesitates for a moment, then takes a deep breath. "The person who did it is someone close to me. Someone you know very well. Jamal, a 16-year-old honor student, has always been the pride of his low-income neighborhood. Raised by a single mother who worked tirelessly to provide for him, he's known from a young age the importance of hard work and education. Jamal's been determined to change the course of his life, earning a scholarship to a prestigious school. His reputation as a bright, dedicated student has spread throughout the community. He's always had dreams of attending college, of escaping the cycle of poverty that so many of his peers fall into. But now, all of that is at risk. One fateful night, as Jamal was walking home from a tutoring session, the unimaginable happens. He's wrongfully accused of stealing a car he didn't touch. The police show up out of nowhere, pulling him aside, accusing him of a crime he had no part in. Despite his protestations, they arrest him and bring him to court, where his future hangs in the balance. This is a young man who has never even been in trouble with the law before. Yet here he is, standing in front of a judge, fighting for his freedom. But the fight he's facing isn't just against false accusations. It's also against the racial prejudice that's followed him his entire life. From the moment he was arrested, Jamal knew that his skin color would be seen as an indictment, a reason for suspicion even without any proof. As his case unfolds, Jamal must not only fight to prove his innocence, but to survive a system that has always been stacked against people like him. Judge Anderson, the man sitting at the front of the courtroom, has his own history. He's known for his tough stance on defendants, always ruling by the book in his mind. He prides himself on being fair, but underneath that reputation lies something else, an ingrained bias. Judge Anderson has always been quick to dismiss the defense of minority defendants, not because of evidence, but because he has long held beliefs about their worth and their likelihood of committing crimes. To him, Jamal's background makes him guilty before even hearing his side of the story. As Jamal stands in front of him, nervously shifting from foot to foot, he senses the unspoken disdain from the judge. His fate is already sealed in the judge's mind, even though the evidence is sparse and flimsy at best. This is the first time Jamal has ever faced the court system, and despite his intelligence, he knows he's up against something much more powerful than just false accusations. He's fighting a system that judges him based on his race and his background. For Judge Anderson, Jamal is just another young black male who must be guilty, even without proof. The judge's dismissive attitude toward Jamal's defense and his reliance on racial stereotypes cloud his judgment. He doesn't even listen to the defense attorney's full argument, already convinced of Jamal's guilt based on his appearance alone. This deep-seated prejudice plays a pivotal role in the proceedings. Judge Anderson's biased attitude shapes every aspect of Jamal's trial. The judge's actions reflect a system that has often overlooked the rights and humanity of black defendants, all while believing they are simply upholding the law. To him, Jamal's case isn't about fairness or justice. It's about reinforcing his worldview that people like Jamal don't belong in the world of privilege and opportunity. His career has been built on maintaining order, but at what cost? The cost of a young man's future? The cost of a life defined by bias rather than truth? But Jamal, despite everything he's faced, isn't giving up. Though the odds seem overwhelmingly against him, he has something that Judge Anderson doesn't anticipate: resilience. Jamal is determined to prove his innocence, and in doing so, he will shatter the biases of the courtroom that have held so many people like him down for far too long. As the trial continues and Jamal's story unfolds, he becomes more than just a defendant in the eyes of the court. He becomes a symbol of resistance against a system that has always marginalized him. The quiet strength he displays in the face of overwhelming odds forces everyone in the courtroom, especially Judge Anderson, to reckon with their own beliefs, their own biases, and the impact those beliefs have on the lives of the people in front of them. Jamal stands at the defendant's table, feeling the weight of the courtroom on his shoulders. He knows the stakes. His entire future is on the line. As he opens his mouth to speak, his voice trembles slightly, but his words come out with conviction. "I didn't steal the car, Your Honor," Jamal begins, looking directly at the judge, trying to stay calm despite the tension in the air. "I was walking home from a tutoring session when I saw a man running. I saw him get into the car. I tried to stop him, but the situation got out of hand. I was caught up in the confusion, but I swear to you, I didn't steal anything." Jamal's defense, although simple, is truthful. He recounts the moments of confusion, explaining how he was trying to do the right thing, only to find himself wrongly accused. His heart races as he watches the judge's face, hoping for some understanding. The courtroom is still, with the hum of the air conditioning the only sound breaking the silence. But the judge, sitting high on his bench, doesn't seem to be listening to Jamal. Instead, he glances over at the prosecutor, shaking his head with a dismissive smile. "Look at this kid," Judge Anderson mutters under his breath, loud enough for the entire courtroom to hear. Now he's playing the hero, trying to claim he saw the real thief. The judge's words echo through the room, and Jamal can feel the sting of humiliation. He wasn't just being accused of a crime he didn't commit. Now he was being ridiculed in front of everyone. His words laughed off as if he didn't deserve to be taken seriously. Jamal's nerves start to fray, but he holds on to his composure. He knows he must stay strong, even if the judge doesn't believe him. He continues, "I know how this looks, but I've never been in trouble with the law in my life. I don't have a record. I didn't do this." He looks to his lawyer, silently pleading for any support. But it feels like all eyes in the room are fixed on him, some of them judging, others just watching the scene unfold. Judge Anderson laughs again, this time more loudly, his eyes scanning the room as if he's already made up his mind about Jamal's guilt. "A teenager who wants to play the good guy," the judge says, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You think I'm going to fall for that? You can't fool me. You're trying to make yourself look innocent, but this is what it is. You got caught, and now you're trying to talk your way out of it." His mockery fills the room, and Jamal feels the sting deep in his chest. His stomach churns as he looks around at the other people in the courtroom, some staring blankly, others smirking, but none of them coming to his defense. The judge's words feel like an indictment of his entire life, as if being a young black man automatically makes him guilty. The judge waves his hand dismissively, signaling the end of Jamal's defense. "We're not here for your sob story, son," he says, looking at Jamal like he's just a nuisance. "I've heard enough. You can't talk your way out of this. I've seen your kind before. You're just another troubled teenager." Jamal's heart pounds as he struggles to hold back tears. He opens his mouth to speak again, but nothing comes out. His throat tightens as he looks at the judge, who's already turned away from him, dismissing him as if he's not even worth the time. The tension in the courtroom is thick, and for a moment, Jamal thinks he might collapse from the weight of it all. But as he stands there, his voice shaking, a thought hits him. He's not alone. He still has the truth on his side, and no matter what the judge says, he's going to keep fighting for it. He steadies his breath, knowing that this moment, no matter how hard it seems, is just a small part of something much bigger. Where are you watching from, and what time is it? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Jamal's defense could have been accepted if he were given a fair chance? Jamal's body trembles slightly as he stands there, feeling the weight of the moment pressed down on him. For a second, the room seems to blur, and everything becomes a rush of thoughts in his mind. The mockery, the condescension, all of it. It's enough to make anyone crumble. But he stands taller now, finding strength in something greater than himself. The courtroom, tense with the echoes of the judge's dismissal, suddenly goes still. Jamal clears his throat, his voice coming out steady but firm. He's waited for this moment, and he knows it's time to reveal something that will change everything. "I'm not just some kid off the street, Your Honor," Jamal begins, his words cutting through the oppressive silence in the room. "I'm the son of someone who's fought for justice his whole life. And I'm not afraid to stand up for what's right." The words hang in the air for a moment, thick with meaning. The courtroom, previously buzzing with disinterest and judgment, now quiets as the gravity of Jamal's statement sinks in. The judge, still sitting on his elevated bench, furrows his brow in confusion. "What do you mean, son?" he asks, his voice sounding less sure than before. Jamal takes a deep breath, his chest rising and falling, as he gathers the courage to reveal the truth. "My father, he's a well-known civil rights leader. He's been fighting for racial justice for decades, helping people like me who face injustice every day. His work has impacted the lives of countless people in this city and across the country. His name is Gregory Taylor." A collective gasp ripples through the courtroom. The prosecutor's eyes widen as the name lands in their minds. They start whispering among themselves, the realization dawning on them. Jamal's father, Gregory Taylor, is a name that commands respect. His contributions to civil rights have made him a household name, and his advocacy for racial equality is unmatched. Judge Anderson's face changes. The smirk that had been present moments ago disappears, replaced by an expression of disbelief. He looks at Jamal, then at the prosecutor, then back at Jamal, as if trying to process what he's just heard. "You're the son of Gregory Taylor?" The judge's voice wavers, as if the walls of his own prejudices are beginning to crumble around him. Jamal nods once, his gaze steady. "Yes, I'm his son. And I'm telling you, I'm innocent. I was just walking home from tutoring when everything got turned upside down. I didn't do what you think I did." The entire room is silent, the only sound now the slight shuffle of feet and the clink of a gavel. The prosecutor, who had been so certain moments ago, now seems to shrink in his seat. The case they thought they had against Jamal is no longer valid. His credibility is undeniable, now that the full truth has been revealed. Jamal's statement hits Judge Anderson like a freight train. The force of it causes him to sit back in his chair, no longer confident or dismissive. His previous assumptions about Jamal are shattered. This is no ordinary case anymore. The scales of justice are tipping, and the weight of Jamal's truth has shifted the entire court's perspective. Judge Anderson looks over at the prosecutor, who has now begun scribbling furiously in his notes, trying to reconcile the situation. The defense attorney, who had been struggling to hold on to their argument, now stands a little taller, realizing that the tide has turned in their favor. The courtroom buzzes again, but this time with a sense of revelation. The man who was supposed to be a mere defendant is now standing tall, revealing his family's legacy of fighting for justice, and, in doing so, he's proven that he is not just another black teen caught in the system. He's someone whose voice and whose truth has the power to shake the very foundations of the case against him. The prosecutor, now realizing they've made a grievous mistake, straightens up. The tension in the room is palpable, as everyone watches to see how the judge will react to this newfound knowledge. Judge Anderson clears his throat, his voice quieter now. I believe we need to reconsider the situation here. We have a case to review, and this new information changes everything. I'll be directing the prosecutor to reassess this case immediately. As the words spill out, the finality of the moment is clear. Jamal's secret has changed the course of the trial, and his innocence is no longer in question. The prosecutor's stance wavers as they prepare to backtrack, while Jamal stands tall, the weight of this revelation lifting the burden of the wrongful accusations. The game has shifted, and Jamal has proven that the truth, no matter how long it takes, is stronger than any preconceived notion or bias. Judge Anderson, still reeling from the unexpected turn of events, attempts to regain control of the courtroom, but the shift in atmosphere is undeniable. The confidence he once carried crumbles as Jamal's revelation hangs in the air, its weight heavy with the truth. The judge clears his throat, trying to maintain some semblance of authority. This is a lot to process, he mutters, his earlier smug demeanor now replaced with uncertainty. His eyes flicker to the prosecutor, who is now looking at the case entirely differently. The prosecutor, once fully aligned against Jamal, quickly changes their tone. Your Honor, they begin, their voice now softer, more respectful. With this new information, I think it's clear that Jamal is innocent. We should be dismissing all charges immediately. The courtroom falls silent as the reality of the situation sets in. The prosecutor, who had earlier supported the judge's dismissive stance, now wholeheartedly backs Jamal's defense. The judge nods reluctantly, trying to compose himself as he looks at Jamal. You're right, Judge Anderson finally admits, his voice faltering. This case is dismissed. I apologize for my earlier behavior, Jamal. The apology, though sincere, is not enough to erase the damage done. Jamal nods, his expression calm but firm, knowing that this moment will forever change how people see him. As the case is officially closed, Jamal walks out of the courtroom, his head held high. The weight of the false accusations is lifted, but his victory is bittersweet. He's won this battle, but the scars of prejudice still remain in the world around him. Back in the courtroom, the scene is already shifting. News outlets, eager to cover the story of the wrongly accused teen, begin pouring into the courthouse, and social media buzzes with the hashtag number Justice for Jamal. People are talking. The story of his wrongful accusation, his resilience, and the judge's humbling apology spreads like wildfire. News anchors across the country are discussing the case, and social media users are sharing their outrage, calling for more systemic changes in the justice system. Jamal's case has sparked a larger conversation about the racial biases that pervade every aspect of society, from police actions to the courtroom. The conversations have ignited a movement that demands accountability and reform, not only in the justice system, but across the nation. Judge Anderson, once thought to be above reproach, is now facing public backlash. His handling of the case and his initial dismissal of Jamal's defense are now under intense scrutiny. The public outrage is swift and unforgiving. Legal commentators and activists across the country are calling for an investigation into the judge's conduct. Within days, the Judicial Oversight Committee announces that they will be opening an internal investigation into Judge Anderson's behavior. Questions are raised about his previous rulings and how many other cases he may have mishandled due to his biases. As the investigation unfolds, the public pressure mounts. Judge Anderson's once unblemished career is now in jeopardy, and the conversations surrounding racial bias in the justice system intensify. His reputation is tarnished, and the legal community is forced to examine the systemic issues that allowed such behavior to go unchecked for so long. For Jamal, though, the fight is far from over. While the case against him was dismissed, his story is now one of resilience, strength, and hope. He's become a symbol of resistance against a system that constantly puts people like him at a disadvantage. Jamal's experience has opened eyes across the country to the realities of racial prejudice in the justice system. And, while the judge's apology may seem like a small step toward accountability, it's just the beginning. People are talking, people are listening, and change is starting to take root. Jamal's victory is not just personal, it's a victory for all those who have been wronged, for all those who have faced injustice, and for all those who will continue to fight for a better future. With the charges against him dropped, Jamal stands in the courtroom, his name finally cleared. However, this victory is not just the end of a legal battle, it marks the beginning of a new journey. Jamal knows that clearing his name is just one part of a much larger fight for justice. Walking out of the courtroom, his face holds a mixture of relief and determination. His stride is confident, shoulders back, as the weight of the wrongful accusations is finally lifted. The air in the courtroom feels different now, lighter, as if the truth has permeated the space. His case has become a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even in the face of systemic racial prejudice, the truth can shine through. Outside the courthouse, a group of reporters is waiting to speak to him. Jamal takes a deep breath, feeling the momentary surge of anxiety that comes with being thrust into the spotlight. But he doesn't back down. He faces the cameras, his voice steady and strong. "I'm grateful for this moment," he begins, addressing the crowd. "But this isn't just about me. This is about the bigger picture, about people who've been unfairly targeted and judged simply because of the color of their skin. My case is just one example of the systemic issues that need to be addressed. We need to keep fighting for change, for equality, and for a future where no one else has to go through what I went through." Jamal's words resonate with the crowd. He speaks not just as a victim, but as a young man who understands the power of his voice. His story quickly spreads through the media, becoming a powerful symbol of resistance against the racial bias that still plagues the justice system. Judge Anderson, who has watched Jamal from his seat, is no longer the imposing figure he once was. The once confident judge now sits with his head lowered, a humbling realization washing over him. His once unquestioned authority is now shaken, as the truth about his prejudiced behavior has come to light. The very man who had dismissed Jamal's defense is now left to reflect on his actions. As Jamal walks out of the courthouse, his posture speaks volumes. He is not just walking free from the charges. He is walking with the strength of someone who has faced injustice and emerged victorious. His journey has only just begun, but he knows that the fight for justice doesn't end with his name being cleared. The fight for racial equality in the justice system is a long one, and Jamal is ready to continue it. His heart is filled with the knowledge that his story is one of many. His voice is not just for himself, but for the countless others who have been wrongfully accused, dismissed, or prejudiced against because of their race. In the weeks and months to come, Jamal continues to use his platform to speak out. He becomes a tireless advocate for systemic change, addressing racial bias in the legal system, calling for reforms, and speaking with other young people about the importance of standing up for their rights. He works with local organizations, helping to mentor young students in his community who face similar obstacles, empowering them to rise above prejudice. Jamal's impact goes far beyond the courtroom. He's not just a teen who fought back. He's a symbol of hope for those who've been marginalized. His courage ignites a fire in others, encouraging them to challenge the systems that seek to hold them down. As he moves forward, Jamal remains grounded in his beliefs. He understands that the fight for justice is ongoing, but he's determined to be a part of the change. It's not just about what happens in the courtroom, he says, a quiet strength in his voice. It's about changing the system that put us there in the first place. We have the power to create a better world, one step at a time, one story at a time. Jamal's journey has just begun, but the impact of his bravery is already changing the world around him. The future is brighter for those who stand up, speak out, and never back down in the face of injustice.